Hello, questions. Mystery Rider here, and today I am recording my very first podfic. This podfic is called When Life Shatters Like Glass. I wrote it myself. I do not own the rights to any of the characters. I only own the rights to this specific storyline because it is an alternate universe from the original storyline of My Hero Academia. I am going to warn you guys that there are possible trigger warnings. The tags are on screen currently for the fic, as I have the fic as the background in the video, so please check the tags before continuing listening. I don't want to accidentally trigger anyone. And let's go ahead and dive right in. Summary. Bakugo promised himself that he would be the kind of hero Izuku wanted to be. One who'd save everyone. The next time Izuku popped up in Katsuki's life, Katsuki didn't recognize him until he was being dragged away from the villains by his UA classmates. All for One had pulled the masked and hooded teen to his side as he taunted All Might. Bakugo could just barely hear him speak. Or, Izuku went missing after saving Bakugo from the sludge villain. No one knew what truly happened to him until Izuku was finally away from the villains. Heroes and officers alike are horrified by what the boy has experienced when they interview him, amazed at how he survived and astonished by his will of steel, holding strong despite everything. Bakugo Katsuki had changed. It was subtle at first, but it was there. When Midoriya saved Bakugo from the sludge villain, but never showed back up to school the next day, Bakugo had gone to Auntie Inko's house after classes to see where the nerd was. He was not expecting the police to be talking to Inko as she filed a missing persons report. Bakugo knew he had to have caused Izuku, to do whatever he did. Whether it was ending his life, running away, or getting himself killed by some shitty villain. Katsuki regrets how he treated Izuku, especially yesterday. He slowly backs away before walking home, promising himself that he would be the kind of hero Izuku wanted to be. One who'd save everyone. The next time Izuku popped up in Katsuki's life, Katsuki didn't recognize him until he was being dragged away from the villains by his UA classmates. All for One had pulled the masked and hooded teen to his side as he taunted All Might. Bakugo could just barely hear him speak. To think, you not only failed your mentor by leaving Tenko to suffer after society shunned him. You failed such a smart young boy by leaving him on a roof. All for One ripped off the hood and mask from the teen, the only person left on the field outside the villain and heroes, revealing Midoriya Izuku to the cameras flying overhead. Bakugo wasn't sure if he was breathing anymore when he spotted Izuku. He couldn't be sure about anything. Was Izuku there by choice? No, he couldn't be. He only ever wanted to be a hero. He wouldn't willingly hang around villains. They had to have forced him there. Bakugo watched as Izuku vanished, having coughed up the same sludge that Bakugo was coughing up only minutes earlier. Even on TV, Izuku looked empty. Broken. Katsuki punched the wall in the dorm commons, screaming into his phone. What the fuck do you mean they lost Izuku? Why can't they fucking find him? Are they just not searching? His shoulders heave as he takes in a few deep breaths, trying to calm down from the outburst in front of his classmates. Everyone in the common room stares at Bakugo in shock, the explosive blonde having been a lot more tame since his kidnapping. Bakugo barely whispers into the phone, running his hand through his hair in frustration. They can't give up on him. Izuku isn't there by choice. He'd rather die before becoming a villain. I know him too well. Just before hanging up the phone, words barely ghosting his lips. He needs a hero to save him for once in his life. The first war came and went. They didn't catch the entire league, but they at least won the first war and took half their forces. There was still no sign of Izuku. The world knew Miria was All Might's successor, and that the third year was ready to be the symbol of peace in his footsteps. Bakugo knew that the world needed a different symbol, though. They didn't need a symbol of peace. They needed a symbol of hope. Proof that no matter what happens, someone will keep searching for them. Bakugo was determined to be Izuku's symbol of hope. It's been over a year since Izuku went missing, and he still wasn't home. During the second and final war, Shigaraki and All for One showed all their cards. Bakugo was doing his damnedest to win the fight in front of him, protect everyone he cared about, and make sure that everyone was able to go home. He wasn't prepared for what their trump card was. There Izuku stood, staring at the heroes in front of him with a shock collar tightened around his neck. All for One was grinning in that sadistic way, staring down at Bakugo, who was trying to shuffle away after landing on his ass from a punch Izuku delivered to his stomach. You know, Bakugo, I didn't realize it was you, the little baby boy my son was attached to, until Eri gave me back my eyes. All for One sets his hand on Izuku's shoulder, causing the teen to flinch before going absolutely still. Izuku always talked about you, and how amazing of a hero you would be. Well, he did until the day I picked him up. Midoriya Azashi's voice carried across the battlefield, all fighting having ceased in that moment, everyone wondering what the villain is trying to say about Bakugo. The chopper overhead tries to circle lower, attempting to let the viewers hear what the villain and heroes are saying. Izuku was devastated to know that the boy he considered his best friend would rather he died than to let him dream about being a hero. The poor, quirkless boy, the weak Deku, the one everyone hated, used their quirks on, burned, told to kill himself like he didn't matter at all. Hisashi's hand travels to Izuku's chin, lifting it and making him look Bakugo in the eyes. But I made him stronger. He's different from the Nomu. Unlike them, he can think freely, analyze everything, and is so unbelievably smart. As my son, he could handle every quirk I put into his body once he learned to control it. The only downside is how desperately he wants to be a good. But the shock collar was able to fix that for me. So tell me, Bakugo Katsuki, do you really think you can be a hero with what you caused Izuku to become? Bakugo grits his teeth as he stands. I was shitty as a young teen, I know that. But I have never stopped looking for Izuku. When every other fucking person gave up, I kept looking. I knew the nerd was alive after Kamino. I knew there must be some fucked up reason you had kept him. To think that you would use your own son for your fucking experiments makes you more of a shitty bastard than I thought, Hisashi. Baring his teeth in a snarl, Bakugo starts to stalk forward, leading a silent charge as the heroes behind him all start to stand tall, moving forward with the student. Izuku is and always will be the best fucking hero I've ever met. Standing against you every day he could, fighting you tooth and nail while you torture him, tried to make him into what you want him to become. Izuku slowly raises his head to look Katsuki in the eyes, mouth opening and whispering, Kachan, in a silent plea. I'm going to rip your throat out with my teeth if I have to, just so I can free Izuku from your deadly hand. So kindly fuck off and get your gross, shitty-ass hand off of my Izuku! Bakugo growls, launching forward while letting off an explosion. It was like time moved in slow motion. Hisashi's hand slowly raises, a red glow emanating from his hand. Bakugo moving forward with his attack as the hand inches further up, aiming at Bakugo's heart. Izuku shifts out from under his father's hand, slamming a palm into the man's stomach and activating his quirk at the exact same moment Hisashi's hand makes contact with Katsuki's chest. A scream echoes across the battlefield, but no one is sure who exactly it comes from in the moment, as time seems to move naturally again. Fights break out all across the field while Shigaraki Tomura collapses to the ground, dead. Bakugo drops like a sack of potatoes at the same moment Hisashi feels all of his quirks leave him, just like a punch to the gut makes the air leave someone's lungs. Izuku! You can't do this! I made you! You are mine! No one will ever see you as a hero. Not when you're my son. Not when you have my power. Hisashi falls to his knees, weak as all his quirks that have kept him alive this long leave him, letting time catch up. Izuku stands over his father, eyes cold as he rips off the collar. At least I'll die knowing I saved the world from two of the worst villains. He spits out in the coldest, darkest tone he can muster. Father! Hisashi's eyes glass over, the man already turning to dust as Izuku stares down at him for only a moment longer before turning on his heel. He goes the few feet to Katsuki's body, picking him up before screaming loud enough for everyone to hear. All for one and Shigaraki Tomura are dead! Midoriya Izuku has turned himself over to the heroes. This fight is over! Turn yourselves in! Quirk activated. Izuku starts Katsuki's heart again while walking towards the heroes. As soon as he feels a pulse, as soon as his foresight tells him Katsuki will live, Izuku sets Katsuki down on the ground, stepping 5 feet to the left of his body before getting on his knees. He laces his fingers behind his head, mind muffling the words being spoken to him as he stares forward blankly. He's floating, watching as the heroes force him on his stomach, putting quirk-canceling cuffs on him. Izuku distantly realizes he's disassociating, everything feeling miles away, like it's happening to someone else. Not long after the cuffs, chains, muzzle, and more are put on his body, Izuku is placed in a police transport vehicle before being escorted to the nearest secure building for interrogation. Just before being locked in the vehicle, he sees Katsuki ripped away from the paramedics that had made their way to him. Izuku wonders what Katsuki might be doing as the doors shut on him running towards the transport vehicle. Izuku knows that there are guns pointed at him from every angle. He knows people are observing him from the other side of the glass, trying to decide how to handle him, trying to decide his fate. They don't know him. They don't know what he went through. They don't know what should have pushed him over the edge, yet never did. All they know is that he's All for One's son, was tortured by the villain, and has the same quirk as him. It could be minutes, it could be hours later when the door to the room finally opens. Izuku continues to stare straight forward, not acknowledging the officer who enters the room. He can feel the man's cat mutation quirk and knows it's just a normal officer. His father, Captor, made him memorize every officer in the areas they frequented. Sansa looks at the kid in front of him, standing against a corner wall while waiting for Sakachi to enter the room. He knows looks can be deceiving, but the kid looks so harmless, so broken at that moment. It's a few more minutes before Sakachi enters, the sound of Bakugo Katsuki's voice coming into and out of hearing with the door opening and closing. Izuku's eyes move to look at the door. At first, both the detective and officer assume he was looking at the newcomer. But as the gaze stays on the door, they both realize it was something else that caught his attention. After a few minutes of silence, Sakachi breaks the spell. I'm Detective Sakachi Naamasa, quirk lie detector. You can tell when anything someone says, whether in person or a recording, is the truth, a half lie, or a full lie. Although you don't know what exactly is the lie if someone says a truth and a lie in the same sentence. In the corner is Officer Tamakawa Sansa, quirk, cat. He has some cat characteristics and behaviors, though he knows how to hide and reject his instincts. He can also get high off of catnip. There's a pause as both officers digest the fact that Izuku knows the information about them and their quirks. Sorry, Hisashi forced me to learn everything possible about any heroes and officers that work, live, or even cover patrols in the areas we would frequent. He'd do random checks and it wasn't good if I failed. It's automatic to respond at this point. True. Well, shit. This kid's been through a lot in the almost 2 years he's been missing. Tsukachi taps the table once, signaling to everyone watching that the kid is telling the truth. I won't lie, but I know a lot of what happened isn't pretty. Not many people can stomach what I'm going to tell you while answering your questions. I'm sorry to everyone who's gonna end up uncomfortable and have to leave the observation room. If Kachan is there, can you make him leave? I don't want him to hear this. Same with my mom. She doesn't need to know. Izuku bows his head, unable to move much more than that with all the restraints on him. They shouldn't hear what I went through. Tsukashi nods, signaling to Sansa to make sure that happens. Sansa steps out and only a few minutes later re-enters the room. Both take a seat, Sansa moving his to the corner he was standing in. Let's begin. How did you wind up in contact with the League and All for One? Izuku slowly blinks, looking at Tsukachi. Do you want my first contact ever with All for One, or the first time I knew who he actually was? Sansa tenses as Tsukachi looks at the boy. Does that mean the claim All for One made to Bakugo on the battlefield is true? Yes. True. Fuck. Start with the day you went missing, then. Izuku looks up at the ceiling, taking a few moments to gather himself before looking back up to the detective in front of him. It started like any other day. I got up and went to school. I was bullied and picked on by both the teachers and the students. My teacher called me out in front of the entire class for wanting to go to UA even though I was quirkless. After school, Kachan exploded my notebook, threw it out the window, told me something, burned my shoulder, and left. I was walking home after gathering all my stuff when I was attacked by the sludge villain. I honestly thought I was going to die. All Might saved me, slapped me until I woke back up from almost suffocating. A single tap on the table from Tsukachi, proving that everything said so far was true. Then tried to leave me in the alley. I was still in shock from the attack, but I wanted an answer to the question, so I grabbed All Might's leg as he jumped into the air. He tried to shake me off before landing on a roof. I asked him my question and he answered. For the record, what exactly did you ask him? It may be important later, so we need all the details now, including what Bakugo Katsuki said to you. Oh, Kachan told me that if I wanted to be a hero so bad, maybe I should jump off a roof and hope for a quirk in my next life. There was a sharp intake of breath from both officers in the room, the observation room being dead silent until the single tap signaled that Izuku told them the truth. Everyone observing held their breath, waiting for the next answer. And your conversation with All Might? I asked him if someone quirkless could be a hero. His time limit ran out and he shrank to small might and told me no. A quirkless person can't be a hero, especially since he, with his powerful quirk, suffered a grave injury. He told me a little bit more, though I can't remember what all I learned from him or All for One, so I'm just gonna leave it at that. After dropping all that information on me, he told me that someone should let me off the roof if I make enough noise, and left. Tsukachi held back his anger as he tapped the table once, jaw clenched as he wishes he could punch the former number 1 hero. What happened next? I called my dad. As far as I was aware, he was in America for work. I now know that to be a lie, but I didn't then. I told him about what Kachan did to me, what he said, and how All Might said I couldn't be a hero after saving me from the sludge villain. While talking to him, I got off the roof and started walking home. That's when I heard the explosions. I hung up on him and ran towards them, recognizing them as Kachans. Before seeing the same villain who attacked me, my feet moved before I knew what was happening, and then I was throwing my backpack at the villain and trying to free Kachan. All Might save the day, I got chewed out by the 3 other heroes on scene who were watching a kid being actively murdered, by the way, and then was sent on my way home. Sansa was trying his best to hold back his horror at what all the kid had been through in only a few hours. Sukachi was faring a bit better, biting the inside of his cheek to keep quiet outside of necessary questions and the single tap of his finger. In the observation room, 3 heroes were holding back one feral underground hero as he tried to attack the former number 1 hero. The verbal abuse towards the man was bad enough to cause the tall, bony blonde to shrink in on himself in an attempt to make himself seem like he doesn't exist. Izuku continues in the same monotone voice, staring straight in front of him. I was walking home from the second attack when a portal opened. It was Kurogiri's warp gate. He deposited me directly in front of my dad, who greeted me and said I'd be joining him since I finally hate heroes. He just assumed I did because of what I went through. When I corrected him, he just said, "It's only a matter of time, son." It wasn't, though. Sure, I can hate certain heroes, but I can't hate heroes in general. When I started to fight him, he forced a quirk on me in an attempt to make me submit. I wouldn't. The first quirk, it was called Shadow by the original holder. It was from early quirk times. The user could manipulate shadows and could use them to travel a short distance. I figured out how to use that one quickly. It's how I survived Tanko's temper tantrums. Izuku pauses to catch his breath before continuing. The first tantrum of his left me with the scar on my neck. The handprints specifically. He killed me, but Hisashi brought me back to life by forcing a second quirk on me. Achilles' heel. The quirk made it so I had one thing I was tied to in life. If that thing died, then so could I. But until it does, I will survive every death with only a scar and a few days missing from my time healing. Hisashi didn't know what exactly I'm tied to. Otherwise, he would have made sure Kachan was in his hands sooner. Made sure Kachan never escaped. As long as he's alive, I can't die unless he's the one to kill me. Trust me, I tried. I tried so many times to escape what they did to me. A quiet tap as everyone takes a few moments to breathe, all movements outside of breathing having ceased in both the interrogation room and the observation room. Faces all ranging from carefully masked to horrified at what was done. Things didn't get truly bad until he gave me my third quirk. I think it was about 4 months in. It was hard to tell time since I wasn't given much of anything to really know with. Anyway, around 4 months in, Hisashi was getting fed up with my rebellion, as he called it. Said I was too much like his idiot younger brother. He forced a pyrokinesis quirk on me in an attempt to turn me into a Nomu. Make it so I won't disobey. Instead, he discovered that I could hold more quirks. The doctor theorized that it was because I am his son that I could. That even though I didn't have a quirk, I still had the genetic factor necessary to hold multiple quirks. I was given to the doctor for experiments. Some were terrible. All I remember was the pain from those ones. Others involved me being forced to hurt others. That was when they started using the shock collar, since I would refuse. I didn't want to. I swear I didn't. But if I refused, they would shock me in increasing time and intensity for each refusal on their subject, until I finally did what I was told. It was during one of these sessions that we discovered that I was like my father. Izuku takes a deep breath, ready for everyone to immediately turn on him. I had a quirk, but still had the quirkless body. It turned out I was born with a version of All for One. My version allowed me to either steal someone's quirk and be able to give it to someone else, or make a copy of the quirk that would be mine forever. They treated my quirk like a new little toy for them to play with. I hated it. I still hate it. At least I was able to do one good thing with it, though. Killing him was worth it. I just hope you were able to either catch or kill the doctor. If he's still on the loose, there will be more Nomu. I can't even tell you where all the bases and safe houses are, since they didn't trust me not to betray them if I got the chance. He bows his head as much as he can. I'm sorry I'm not of more use. Tsukachi shakily stands, Sansa following suit. Trust me, kid. You have helped a lot. We just needed to know what we can about you to be able to figure out the next step for you. For now, you'll stay here. There's a lot to consider before any decision is made. Raising his head, Izuku meets Tsukachi's gaze for the first time. Can I make one request? Sure, kid, though I can't promise it'll happen. Can you tell Kacchan I don't blame him for what happened? That the only person at fault is my dad. Tsukachi's heart shatters even more at those words. After everything he's been through, all the kid wants is to make sure his old bully is okay. I'll be sure to tell him, Izuku. Try to get some rest while you wait. Thank you. Both officers leave the room, going straight to a conference room with everyone involved in this old yet new case. Midoriya Inko sits in a chair next to the three Bakugos, Katsuki standing as soon as the detective and other heroes enter the room. Can I fucking see him yet? I need to apologize for the shit I did. Ooh. For the shit I did and for causing this to happen to him. It shouldn't have happened. Tsukachi raises his hand, stopping the boy. Midoriya Izuku wanted me to pass on a message. He doesn't blame any one of you. He only blames the villains who did this to him. Sighing, he knows the next words will not be taken well, especially by the explosive blonde. Luckily for Tsukachi, the boy's teacher, Eraserhead, speaks up. Bakugo, we've been over this in class. No one except the heroes and officers on the case are allowed to interact with the criminal. But Izuku isn't a fucking criminal! He's a goddamn victim! That little shit would rather die than become a fucking villain! As I was saying, only the officers and heroes on case can speak to the criminal, willing participant or not. Officer Sansa will show you to the room set up for you all to wait. I assume none of you plan on leaving, considering your relation to Midoriya and your want to be here if he is released. Sansa nods and stands, holding the door open as the Bakugos and Midoriya Inko leave the conference room. After a few minutes, everyone remaining in the room settles down and Sansa comes back, returning to his seat. Nezu, who is hiding in Aizawa's scarf for the entire interaction with the Bakugos and Inko, sits at the head of the conference table. His paws are resting together, similar to how one would interlace their fingers as he finally lets his mask break, allowing everyone in the room to see just how rageful and hurt the rat is. Midoriya Izuku. If anyone in this room can understand him remotely, relate to him even the tiniest bit, it would have to be you, Nezu-san. Tsukachi is the one to finally break the silence, looking devastated and done with the world at the same time as he's the one who knew that everything the kid said was true before anyone else did. You could understand his pain from the experimentation to a degree, maybe even figure out how his mind works. You do tend to... No! Yes, Midoriya and I were both experimented on, but one was betrayed by someone who should love and care for him, while I was experimented on by strangers who used animals to study quirks. Midoriya decided to kill his captors and turn himself in. He doesn't blame anyone except those villains that experimented on him. I, on the other hand, wanted to destroy all of humanity for a while. I blamed all of humankind for what those few did to me. I could try and figure out how his mind is working, but I believe we already have the best tool to figure out what Midoriya will do with his future. Nezu's gaze moves from hero to hero, never pausing until the end of his speech, when his beady eyes meet Yagi's. I do believe there could be two who could help us figure this out, but one is allowed on the case while the other is too close to the case, and a bit too young and inexperienced. Coughing into a now bloody fist, Yagi's face is full of shock. Once he can finally breathe again, he slowly changes to understanding. You want to see what he'd do when he could easily kill me? Correct. If attempts to neutralize you, we will neutralize him. Midoriya already told us how we can. Aizawa stands, slamming his hands down on the conference table. His usually passive face burns with pure anger, his tone laced with a burning fire. We will not make two families lose their only son for the sake of finding out if Midoriya will try to kill a hero who failed him. I will not let you force my student to kill someone he spent over a year searching for either. Most of the room flinches back, fear chilling their bones as they look at Aizawa, hoping someone can calm him down. Young Aizawa, no! You don't get to decide in this. You were the one who left a child on the roof of a building after telling him a national secret. A man who is usually on fire, yet currently completely flameless, raises his hand. The movement draws the entire room's attention, causing silence to prevail. We could offer Ground Zero the choice. Let him decide if he should die or if he is the one to put the bullet in Midoriya's head if the boy turns out to be a ticking time bomb. The silence of the room is deafening. Everyone looks uncomfortable as they think about the options, trying to think of another possibility. Finally, Gran Torino is the one to blurt out an idea that settles well with most of the occupants in the room. Rehab. He could go through a rehab course, train to be a hero if he wants at UA. The place is a fortress, and he would have quirk suppressors on unless he's in training. Eraserhead should always be present when Midoriya trains his quirk. He can stop it if he gets out of control. Absolutely worst case scenario, rehab goes wrong. Midoriya and Bakugo have to be killed just to kill Midoriya. It had been hours since Tsukachi and Sanza had left the interrogation room. Izuku just continued to stare forward the entire time, unmoving. He continues to stare forward, spacing out, when the door opens and Eraserhead and Present Mic enter the room. It isn't until one of them crosses his vision path that Izuku realizes they're there. There's a few seconds before anyone speaks, but Izuku interrupts the silence first. I can fix Oboro. Only someone with One For All or a variation of it can revert a Nomu back to normal. But the Nomu has to be one who can think for themselves to a degree. Kurogiri is one of those high-end Nomus that can think for himself somewhat. Both freeze for a few moments before taking a calming breath. Midoriya, you are being released into UA's custody for a rehab program. You can choose what course you want to be a part of after spending a few weeks at UA getting to experience each course. You'll be wearing quirk suppressors unless it is during actual quirk or heroics training. Then I will be supervising, because you can cancel my quirk in case I end up trying to seriously hurt someone. You all want to be sure I'm not a sleeper agent type thing, right? Hey, little listener, no one said that! But you are all thinking about it. Otherwise, it wouldn't be easy to connect it. It's fine. I understand it. I did spend over a year with the world's most deadly and terrifying villain. Izuku slowly stands after most of the restraints are removed, patiently waiting for the suppressor bracelets to be put on right after the cuffs are removed. I will say, if it turns out they did make me a sleeper, just kill me. There won't be a way for me to come back. And that, my friends, is the end of When Life Shatters Like Glass. I do know that there is a sequel in the works. It's just obviously not yet released, and I only know that because I am the one working on it. Feel free to leave kudos on the actual story on AO3. I would absolutely love to have more comments. I love hearing what people think. You can leave comments both on YouTube and on AO3, since it is my story on AO3 that I was reading today. But yeah, it was lovely reading to you all, and I hope you enjoyed my very first podfic. Thank you, everyone, and I hope you have a good morning, noon, evening, night. Bye-bye.